As 2026 begins, European regulators have already removed certain foods from their shelves after deciding the risks were too high to ignore. But here in the UK, those same products are still being sold. Right now, as you shop at Tesco, some of the foods sitting openly on these shelves are ones Europe has already said should no longer be eaten. Tesco continues to sell them without signs, warnings, or explanations at the shelf. That's the disturbing part. Most shoppers have no idea this happened, and the reasons for the bans boil down to concerns about DNA damage, chemical exposure that builds up in the body over time. Long-term health risks, European regulators said they could not safely rule out. In this video, I'm counting down 8 specific Tesco food items that Europe has banned as of 2026, but which are still being sold in the UK. I'll show you exactly what they are, why Europe stepped in, and what to look for before you put them in your trolley. By the end, you'll understand why. Still for sale in the UK doesn't always mean considered safe everywhere. Item 8. Tesco orange and lemon slices. At first glance, there is nothing suspicious about this product at all. Tesco orange and lemon slices look like a simple, old-fashioned sweet. Soft jelly, sugar-coated, citrus-flavoured, and familiar. It's the kind of product people have eaten for years without ever questioning what's inside. Most shoppers assume that if something is still being sold, it must have passed every serious safety check. They trust that regulators have already done the work behind the scenes. No one expects controversy in a basic bag of sweets. But when European regulators look closely at products like this, they reached a very different conclusion. If you read the ingredients list on Tesco orange and lemon slices, you'll find titanium dioxide, also known as E171. It isn't added for taste or preservation. It's there purely for appearance to make colours look brighter, whiter, and more appealing. For a long time, that seemed harmless. Then the science caught up. In 2022, European food safety authorities reviewed roughly 10,000 scientific studies on titanium dioxide. Their concern wasn't about large particles that simply pass through the body. It was about nano-sized particles, fragments so small they can pass through the gut lining and enter the bloodstream. Once inside the body, these particles don't simply leave. Studies showed they can accumulate in organs such as the liver and spleen. More worrying still, researchers found evidence that these particles could cause DNA strand breaks and chromosomal damage in cells, raising concerns about long-term genetic harm. Crucially, regulators could not establish a safe level of exposure, not a reduced amount, not a daily limit, and not a separate standard for children. Because they couldn't rule out the risk, Europe removed titanium dioxide from the list of approved food additives entirely, meaning foods containing it could no longer be sold in the EU. Despite this, Tesco orange and lemon slices remain available in the UK. An ingredient Europe judged too risky for its food system is still present in a product many people buy casually, often for children, without any warning. This isn't about panic or claiming immediate harm from a single sweet. It's about transparency, trust, and who is expected to carry the risk when regulators disagree. If this feels unsettling, the next item is even more concerning, because it's something people buy specifically for celebrations and special occasions, assuming it's completely safe. Item 7. Tesco Angel Cake Slices, 6-pack. Tesco Angel Cake Slices are the kind of product people rarely think twice about. They look light, simple, and traditional. There's no sense that you're buying anything artificial or controversial. It feels like the opposite of a risky food choice, which is exactly why this product matters. Most shoppers assume supermarket own-brand cakes go through strict checks. They trust that if something is sold under a major retailer's name, any questionable ingredients would already have been removed. Angel cake, in particular, feels harmless. It's often bought for children, shared at family gatherings, or served to older relatives without hesitation. But when European regulators reviewed food additives across the market, they didn't focus on how wholesome a product looked. They focused on what was actually inside it. If you read the ingredients list on Tesco angel cake slices, you'll find titanium dioxide, also known as E171. In this product, it isn't used to preserve the cake or improve its taste. It's used in decorative elements and coatings to create a clean, bright, uniform appearance. In simple terms, it's there to make the cake look better on the shelf. For a long time, that didn't raise alarms. Titanium dioxide had been used for decades in foods, cosmetics, and medicines. Because people weren't getting sick immediately, it was assumed to be safe. That assumption changed when regulators began looking more closely at how the substance behaves inside the body. In 2022, European food safety authorities completed a major scientific review, examining thousands of studies on titanium dioxide. Their concern wasn't about large particles that simply pass through the digestive system. It was about nano-sized particles, fragments small enough to pass through the gut lining and enter the bloodstream. Once inside the body, these particles don't just disappear. Research showed they can accumulate in organs such as the liver and spleen over time. More concerning still, studies found evidence that these particles could cause DNA strand breaks and chromosomal damage in cells. This raised serious concerns about long-term genetic effects, even at low levels of exposure. Here's what ultimately triggered the ban. Regulators could not establish a safe level. They couldn't say, this amount is fine. They couldn't set a lower limit for children. They couldn't confidently rule out harm. Because of that uncertainty, Europe removed titanium dioxide entirely from the list of approved food additives. That decision meant foods containing it could no longer be sold in the EU, regardless of how small the amount was or how familiar the product seemed. Yet in the UK, Tesco angel cake slices remain on sale. That creates a silent contradiction. A product Europe decided was too risky to keep selling is still being bought by families who have no reason to suspect anything is wrong. There are no warning labels explaining the disagreement. No notices telling shoppers that this ingredient was removed elsewhere. Just a cake that looks exactly as safe as it always did. This isn't about claiming that one slice of cake will cause immediate harm. It's about understanding why an ingredient used purely for appearance crossed a line serious enough for Europe to remove it completely, and why UK shoppers were never told. And if this surprises you, the next item is even more unsettling because it involves something people chew daily, assume never enters the body, and therefore never think to question. Item 6. Tesco Extra White Chewing Gum. Chewing gum feels like a loophole in food safety. People don't swallow it, so they assume whatever's inside doesn't really matter. It's treated as disposable, almost invisible. You chew it, spit it out, and move on. That assumption has allowed certain ingredients to escape scrutiny for years. Extra white style gums are marketed around cleanliness and freshness. Bright white pellets, long-lasting flavour, a promise of dental hygiene. Nothing about the product suggests risk, especially because it isn't framed as food in the way sweets or cakes are. But regulators don't assess risk based on how a product is marketed. They assess what happens when substances enter the body. If you examine the ingredients in many white chewing gums sold in the UK, including versions available at Tesco, you'll find titanium dioxide, also known as E171. It's used to give the gum its bright white colour and uniform appearance. Again, it adds no taste, no function, no benefit beyond how the product looks. The problem is that chewing gum is one of the most efficient ways to release additives into the body. When you chew gum, you're not swallowing it, but you are constantly exposing your mouth, saliva, and digestive system to whatever is embedded in it. Nano-sized particles don't need to be swallowed whole to enter the body. They can be released into saliva and absorbed through tissues over time. This is one of the reasons European regulators became increasingly concerned. As with cakes and sweets, Europe's review of titanium dioxide focused on nanoparticles. These particles are small enough to cross biological barriers. Studies showed they could enter the bloodstream and accumulate in organs. More troubling, laboratory evidence showed they could cause DNA strand breaks and chromosomal damage in cells. Crucially, regulators could not identify a safe exposure level. That mattered even more for products like chewing gum, where exposure is repeated, prolonged, and often daily. As a result, when Europe removed titanium dioxide from its list of approved food additives in 2022, products like white chewing gum were directly affected. In EU countries, gums containing E171 could no longer be sold as food products. In the UK, however, these gums remain available. People continue to chew them daily, often multiple times a day, without any indication that an ingredient inside them was considered too risky for Europe's food system. What makes this particularly uncomfortable is how invisible the exposure feels. There's no eating, no swallowing, no sense of risk, just a routine habit that seems harmless, even healthy. This isn't about saying chewing gum is inherently dangerous. It's about understanding how an ingredient used purely for appearance ended up in a product designed for constant contact with the mouth, and why Europe decided that risk wasn't acceptable. Take a moment and think about what you bought last time for the kids, because the next item isn't something adults snack on quietly. It's something families buy deliberately, believing it's safer than most treats. Item 5. Tesco Halal Beef Steak. This is where the story takes a turn, because this product doesn't come from the sweets or baking aisle. It's a fresh meat item, something people buy for real meals, family dinners, and cultural dishes they trust. Tesco Halal Beef. Steak in tandoori marinade looks thoughtful, carefully prepared, and safe. It's the kind of product shoppers feel confident serving to their families. That confidence is exactly why this item matters. Most people assume artificial food dyes only appear in brightly coloured sweets or fizzy drinks. They don't expect to find them in marinated meat. And because this product is sold as halal and under a major supermarket's own brand, many shoppers assume it has gone through extra scrutiny. But when you read the ingredients in the marinade, you'll find several artificial colourings, including members of what are known as the Southampton Six. These dyes became controversial after a major 2007 study conducted by researchers at Southampton University and published in The Lancet. In that study, nearly 300 children took part in a double-blind trial. Some were given drinks containing these artificial colours, while others were given placebos. The results were clear. Children who consumed the dyes showed statistically significant increases in hyperactivity and attention problems, particularly in the 8 to 9-year-old age group. Europe didn't fully ban these colours. Instead, it took a step that proved just as powerful. Since 2010, any food containing these dyes must carry a warning label stating that they may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. That single sentence changed the market. Manufacturers didn't want that warning on their packaging, so most removed the dyes entirely. Tesco itself pledged back in 2008 to remove these colours from all own brand products, and in most cases, it did, which makes this product stand out. The Tesco Halal Beef Steak in tandoori marinade is one of the very few own brand items where these dyes still appear, complete with the required warning. It's legal, it follows the rules, but it exists in a category where shoppers are least likely to expect artificial colourings at all. That raises an uncomfortable question. If companies already know how to remove these dyes and have done so almost everywhere else, why are they still here? Before we move on, if this kind of hidden detail is useful to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people see information supermarkets don't usually explain, and it tells me to keep digging deeper into what's really on our shelves. This isn't about saying this isn't meal will cause harm. It's about understanding why Europe forced warnings so strong that most manufacturers quietly abandon these additives, and why this product remains an exception. So far, everything we've looked at involved what's mixed into the food. The next item is different because it's not about ingredients at all. It's about something your food touches before you ever take a bite. Item 4. Standard metal food tins used for Tesco canned foods. When we talk about BPA-lined cans, we're not talking about anything unusual or specialised. We're talking about the standard metal food tins most people buy every week, the kind you open with a ring pull or a tin opener. These are the cans used for products like Tesco chopped tomatoes, Tesco baked beans, Tesco canned soups, Tesco sweet corn, Tesco tuna, and many other everyday tinned foods. They look like normal metal cans on the outside with paper labels wrapped around them. Nothing about them looks different or suspicious. What most people don't know is that these cans are not just bare metal inside. If food sat directly against metal for months or years, it would react with it. Acidic foods like tomatoes would corrode the can, change the taste, and shorten shelf life. To prevent that, manufacturers coat the inside of the can with a very thin plastic-like lining. For decades, one of the most common materials used for that lining has been bisphenol A, or BPA. This lining is invisible. You cannot see it, scrape it off, or smell it, but it is there, directly touching the food. When foods are acidic, salty, or fatty, like tomatoes, soups, or fish, small amounts of BPA can leak out of the lining and into the food itself over time. That is why BPA matters, even though it's not listed as an ingredient. BPA is known to interfere with hormones in the body. It can mimic estrogen and disrupt normal biological signaling. For years, regulators believed the amount migrating from cans was low enough to be safe. That belief changed after new research. In 2023, European food safety authorities reviewed hundreds of newer studies and concluded that BPA could affect the immune system at extremely low levels, far lower than previously thought. The amount they once considered safe was reduced by 20,000 times. At that point, Europe decided that continued exposure from food packaging was no longer acceptable. As a result, the European Union moved to ban BPA in food contact materials, including the internal linings of standard metal food cans like the ones used for tomatoes, beans, soups, and fish. This does not mean all canned food instantly disappeared in Europe. Manufacturers are switching to alternative linings, but it does mean that the traditional BPA-lined metal can is being phased out in the EU. In the UK, this change has not fully happened yet. That means when you pick up a standard tin of food at Tesco, there is currently no clear way to know whether the inside of that can still uses BPA or not. No label tells you, no warning explains it, and shoppers are left assuming everything is the same everywhere. This is not about saying canned food is instantly dangerous. It's about understanding which type of packaging Europe decided was too risky to keep using, and recognizing that it's the same everyday tins many people still rely on. If this surprised you, the next item goes even further, because it's not just something that touches your food, it's designed to stay inside your body forever. Item 3. Tesco microwave popcorn. This item is easier to recognize than the others because many people already buy it regularly. We're talking specifically about microwave popcorn such as Tesco microwave popcorn and similar own brand or branded popcorn bags sold in Tesco. Microwave popcorn bags all share the same basic design. They are paper bags that can safely go into a microwave without burning or falling apart, even though the popcorn inside gets very hot and oily. That ability doesn't come from normal paper, it comes from a chemical coating inside the bag. To stop oil soaking through the paper, manufacturers treat these bags with chemicals that make them grease resistant. For many years, those chemicals were part of a large group called PFAS, short for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Most shoppers have never heard of PFAS, but they are often called forever chemicals for a simple reason: they do not break down. Not in the environment and not in the human body. Once they enter your system, they can stay there for years. Here's why microwave popcorn matters. When you heat popcorn in the microwave, you're doing two things that increase chemical transfer. You're applying high heat and you're creating hot fat and oil inside the bag. Those exact conditions make it easier for PFAS chemicals in the packaging to leach into the food. So the concern is not the popcorn itself, it's the bag touching the popcorn while it's hot. Over time, repeated exposure to PFAS has been linked in scientific studies to serious health concerns, including immune system suppression, hormone disruption, liver damage, thyroid disease, and increased risk of certain cancers. Because PFAS build up in the body, regulators became especially concerned about regular low-level exposure from food packaging. That concern led to action in Europe. In 2024, the European Union adopted regulations to ban PFAS in food contact materials, including grease-resistant paper used for things like microwave popcorn bags. Some countries, such as Denmark, had already banned PFAS in food packaging years earlier. The reasoning was simple. If a chemical stays in the body indefinitely and migrates from packaging into food, continued exposure was no longer acceptable. In the UK, this ban has not yet fully taken effect. That means microwave popcorn products sold at Tesco may still use traditional grease-resistant bags that would no longer meet current EU standards. There is no label on the box telling you whether the bag is PFAS-free. There is no warning. And most shoppers assume popcorn is one of the safest snacks you can buy. You'll find regulatory announcements and reporting explaining why Europe moved to remove these chemicals from food packaging. Again, this isn't about saying one bowl of popcorn is dangerous. It's about understanding why Europe decided that repeated exposure from everyday packaging crossed a line, and why UK shoppers were never clearly told. We've now seen ingredients, cans, and packaging. The next item is different again because it's something people drink, trust, and give to children without hesitation. Item 2. Citrus-flavoured soft drinks that once contained BVO. The item we're talking about here is Tango Orange, a citrus-flavoured soft drink that was once sold in versions containing brominated vegetable oil. Tango is a classic UK favourite, often grabbed as an everyday fizzy drink at Tesco, corner shops and vending machines. You probably don't think twice about a can of orange soda. It's marketed as refreshing, bright and fun. Nothing about it screams danger. That's exactly why this one stands out, because something in it used to actually raise serious health concerns. Brominated vegetable oil wasn't added to make the drink taste better. It was there to keep the citrus flavour evenly mixed throughout the soda, stopping oils from separating and rising to the top. It sounds harmless, even clever, but the chemical behaviour inside the body told a different story. BVO contains bromine, a chemical element also used in flame retardants and industrial materials. Unlike many food additives that simply pass through the body, bromine compounds can accumulate in fat, brain tissue, and organs over time. That means repeated exposure doesn't just wash out, it builds up. Medical case reports and research going back decades linked long-term high-level BVO exposure to neurological symptoms, memory issues, coordination, problems, and general toxicity. These aren't minor side effects. They involve central nervous system disruption, the part of your body that controls movement, memory, and basic functioning. Because of these health concerns, the UK banned BVO from foods and drinks as far back as 1970. Europe followed much later, banning it in 2008. However, in other markets, including the United States, BVO continued to be used in citrus-flavoured drinks like Tango Orange for years after that. In fact, BVO wasn't fully removed from soda formulations in those markets until 2024, when newer scientific reviews and regulatory pressure finally forced companies to reformulate. That means for decades people were drinking sodas containing an additive European regulators had already judged too risky. Today, Tesco stocks citrus drinks that have been reformulated without BVO. And that's good. But the reason this item matters isn't that it's dangerous right now, it's that it highlights how long dangerous. Additives can remain in familiar products before any action is taken. It shows clearly that approved use doesn't automatically mean proven safe, and that shoppers can be exposed to questionable chemicals for years before regulators take decisive steps. This history shows how slow and inconsistent food safety decisions can be. But the final item is the one that reveals the biggest gap of all. It's not about a single ingredient or product, it's about how the rules themselves differ between countries. Number 1, Tesco horseradish sauce. This final item surprises most people because it doesn't look processed, artificial, or aimed at children. It's a condiment, something people associate with traditional meals, Sunday roasts, and simple home cooking. The product is Tesco horseradish sauce. Horseradish sauce is usually seen as a straightforward food. It's sharp, creamy, and familiar. People buy it assuming it's made from horseradish root, cream, vinegar, and seasoning. No bright colours. No sweets, no gimmicks. That's why almost no one expects to find a banned food additive in it. But versions of horseradish sauce sold in UK supermarkets, including Tesco, have listed titanium dioxide, also known as E171, in their ingredients. It is used to make the sauce look whiter, brighter and more uniform, especially when processing or shelf life would otherwise dull its appearance. Titanium dioxide does nothing for flavour. It adds no nutritional value. Its only purpose is visual. Europe decided that was not an acceptable reason to keep using it. In 2022, the European Food Safety Authority completed a large scientific review of titanium dioxide, examining around 10,000 studies. Their concern focused on nano-sized particles, which are small enough to pass through the gut lining and enter the bloodstream. Once inside the body, studies showed these particles could accumulate in organs such as the liver and spleen. More seriously, laboratory evidence showed they could cause DNA strand breaks and chromosomal damage in cells. Because regulators could not rule out long-term genetic harm, they concluded that titanium dioxide could no longer be considered safe as a food additive. Crucially, they were unable to establish any safe level of exposure. As a result, the European Union removed E171 from the list of approved food additives. Foods containing it can no longer be sold as food in the EU. That means a product like horseradish sauce, if it contains titanium dioxide, would not be allowed on European shelves. In the UK, however, the ingredient has remained legal. That means shoppers can still buy a sauce containing an additive Europe decided was too risky to keep in the food supply without any warning or explanation at the shelf. This is why this item matters more than all the others. It's not a sweet, it's not a cake, it's not aimed at children, it's a traditional condiment people trust and one they would never think to check for an ingredient linked to DNA damage concerns. This isn't about panic, it's about understanding how deeply a banned additive can be embedded in everyday foods, even ones that look completely harmless. What makes this entire list unsettling isn't just the individual products, it's the pattern behind them. Time and again, European regulators looked at the evidence, reviewed thousands of studies and decided certain risks were too high to accept. In response, they removed ingredients and materials from their food system entirely. In the UK, many of those same products, or versions of them, are still being sold. That doesn't automatically mean everything on these shelves is dangerous, but it does mean shoppers are often carrying the risk without being told there is a debate at all. Ingredients banned elsewhere don't come with warning signs. Packaging chemicals aren't listed on labels, and unless you know exactly what to look for, you'd never realize there was a difference. If this video helped you see the supermarket differently, share it with someone you shop for or cook for. Most people never hear about these changes unless someone tells them. And if you want more breakdowns like this, clear, evidence-based, and focused on what's actually on the shelf, like the video and subscribe. It tells me to keep investigating the things supermarkets don't explain.